Hi, my name is Maggie DeWitty, Executive Director for Pulse Life Advocates. Pulse is Iowa's original pro-life organization, defending life from fertilization till natural death since 1972. We asked moms and dads, husbands and wives, clergy and laity, and saints and sinners two simple questions. How do you raise pro-life children? Or, how did your parents raise you to become pro-life? A number of ideas emerged, beginning with the primacy of the role of faith and prayer in family life. Here's the challenge. Unborn children are now viewed as a disease by many, which promotes a tragic rationalization for abortion as healthcare. Marriage rates are at an all-time low. Millennials are the first generation of which a majority are unmarried. A quarter of adults are child-free by choice, often because of fears of climate apocalypse and pandemic paranoia. So in light of all of this, how do you raise pro-life children? For most, like Chris Magruder, it begins with a belief in God and an active prayer life at a young age.
It really does come down to teaching your kids about that conversation with God, that daily conversation with God called prayer. And, if you can just get your kids into a habit of prayer, they will grow at the speed they're supposed to grow. And the Holy Spirit then has an open door to come in and guide them in their lives and guide them in conversations like this. So prayer, it always goes back to prayer. Always goes back to that conversation with God.
Kim Grivach says her kids are shades of gray on pro-life issues in her blended family, and that prayer is foundational because it works.
My husband and I have 5 children together. We are a blended family. Are all my children pro-life? They are shades of gray, we will say. And what I have done the most is pray. Because the oldest, my husband's oldest, she had different ideas for quite a while. And for her, I just prayed and I prayed. And as I prayed for all of them, but I prayed that her heart would turn. And significantly enough, it has started, and I am in awe. Prayer works. And she's done this on her own because, frankly, she started listening to conservatives so that she could argue against them, but instead found herself going, oh, yes, I do agree with that. And so prayer works. And my younger children, the 2 youngers, are probably more pro-life than the older ones. And because they don't find those shades of gray. And I think it's because as I grew as an adult, I started speaking out. I started advocating. I could no longer just keep my pro-life views inside the 4 walls of my house. I had to expand. And I was nervous to do so. We own a business. What was going to happen? But you know what I found? The more you do God's work and speak for those that have no voice, nothing bad happens, only good comes back to you. So I do think the younger 2 are more like me because they've seen me out and advocating like my mom did when I was little.
In one of our earlier projects, The Holy Family, we talked to Dr. Ray Guarendi, a clinical psychologist and radio talk show host. He said that a holy family begins with a belief that this world is not the only thing that there is.
A holy family starts with the belief that this world is not the only thing there is. As a psychologist, I could see how people would get depressed. They would despair. They would get anxious. They would live in fear. Why not? If there's nothing after this, if this is all there is, then in many respects, I could be pretty impotent. I can't do a whole lot about it. And furthermore, if I bring a kid into this, what can he do about it? So without God, the belief in God that he exists and that he knows the very best way to live, and that in fact, there is something eternal with all of this, then you're right. The nutty ideas, the stupid ideas, the despairing ideas, the psychologically crippling ideas, the fearful ideas will win. So one must choose.
Ultimately, says Dr. Ray, it's critical that mom and dad know the faith.
The first thing a parent has to do, I think, is to know the faith. They have to know the faith. They have to be able to explain it. They have to be able to explain why the morals that Jesus gave us is by far the best way to live psychologically. And then, and this is something I fell short on, the kids got to see their parents not just being devotional. Yeah, we go to church. Maybe we pray the rosary in Aramaic while we kneel on broken glass as we levitate. But they've got to see me live it. They've got to see the choices that I make in life, the fact that I don't chase materialism, the fact that I'm willing to forgive my brother-in-law who's completely, totally obnoxious and nobody else in the family likes, and dad's the only one that gets along with him. They got to see that. If they don't see it, this faith is nothing but a bunch of rules that clash with the culture's rules, and they'd much rather live the culture's ways.
Beth Dulkey confirms what Dr. Ray said, that the gift of faith was foundational to her pro-life convictions.
Well, first of all, my parents gave me faith in God, and that was the basis of my pro-life convictions.
We talked to Bill Donaghy, who is with the Theology of the Body Institute. He said the family is the antidote for this mixed-up culture, that everything starts with the family.
Yeah, thank you, all of you, for having me on board in this conversation. This is right up my alley. This is what I've dedicated my life to the last, 16 years working with the Institute. And really, it's everything you're talking about. John Paul the Great is pondering the mystery of the family. And he's showing us that as we look at masculinity and femininity, as we look at the love of man and woman and the life that comes out of it, the more we press into the family, we see the mystery of God. So it's this profound teaching that ripples out into every aspect of what we believe. It's the incarnation, it's redemption, it's the heart's desire for relationship and intimacy. All these deep questions we have, they're all kind of rooted in the family and flowing out of the family. Now, it's interesting. Tom, you talked about Our Lady Endure of knots, right? The knots. And I think anybody tuning in, when we're talking about family, you can start to reflect right away on like the mess of their own family. So the word knot can be something we can relate to. With the Holy Family, we have something unique. They had their sufferings, but in the center was a man, a woman, and a newborn child who were completely open to God. So this is the model for us, right? That we open up our masculinity, femininity, we open up our families to God so he can help redirect and show us the way to live in and through the body. So this is good stuff. I think family, we all know family's in crisis today. It's kind of been in crisis since Genesis chapter 3, right? There's always been the knots, but as we press in, we're going to realize through John Paul II's insights, the antidote is in the family. When the family is strong, when the family is holy, the culture will be strong. The culture will be holy. It all starts in the family.
As a follow-up, I asked Bill Donaghy, how does Theology of the Body help reset our families and culture at a time when there is so much confusion on reproductive and gender matters? Here's what he said.
Yeah, what a great question, Maggie. Oh, how much time do we have? Because, man, that's a good question. Pope Benedict has this wonderful insight in a book he wrote about Mary. And he says, she is the open vessel of longing. Mary is the open vessel of longing. Mary is the holy soil ready to receive. And I think in these days of, cultural conflict and combat and the battle for our faith and so many things we took for granted, I know what a man is. I know what a woman is. All of these are being unsettled and flipped. We can't join in the frenetic battle and just keep like that kind of a fight. We have to become holy soil. We have to become the receptive hearts that Mary was, if this is going to be the reset to start fresh again. So I think for those listening in families, mothers, fathers, just be careful of how much you take in from the news. It's time to actually, Thoreau once said, read not the times, read the eternities. That means we steep ourselves, as Joe said, back in the word, become holy soil, and we find our identity in the theology of the body, which is a scriptural meditation. So moms, dads, if you're tuning in, carve out time, kill time, waste time every day before the Lord, begging him to send the seed into the soil of your soul, begging him to send the rain that will refresh you. The more we receive in that posture, the more we're going to know who we are, and then we're going to be active in the mission of the family, right? We'll be active in the mission of the family, but it's all rooted in receiving our identity from him, rooted in Genesis, male and female, he created them. Be fruitful and multiply was the first commandment. See, it's all in Genesis. So that's the way to go, is to go back to the beginning in order to press into the future with joyful missionary hearts that comes right out of the family.
Interesting, isn't it? Bill said, be careful how much you take in from the news. Dr. Ray was even more emphatic on this issue.
And I also tell parents, watch what they watch. I'm telling you, watch what they watch. And the number one thing that fights you in trying to raise a virtuous child is a smartphone. Nothing has the power to go against what you're trying to teach than a smartphone. You delay that as long as you can. Give them a dumb phone when they're 15 because, well, they have to get in contact with us. Yeah, well, they don't need the latest and the greatest to get in contact with you. Just a few thoughts, guys.
So how do you raise pro-life children? In this, our first program in the series, our contributing guests tell us it starts with God. Faith and an active prayer life lay the foundation for a culture of life. That's just the beginning.